guys. Elsa Kurt here, but more importantly, I have a great guest with me. It's Vincent Cotroneo.
There you go.
He knows why I paused. You can guess why I paused. It's not a common name. How are you? Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing very, very well. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
I did. It was so nice. I hope yours was well too.
It was very filling, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Still recovering, right? Still coming out of the food coma.
And the leftovers are aplenty in my household.
Oh, yes. I love the leftovers until I hate the leftovers,
Yeah. I'm good with this for another year. That's why
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we just gorge on it, and then when it's done, you can wait a full year. It's good.
Yeah. If anybody says turkey, I'm going to scream.
Yeah, seriously. Exactly. Oh, so you have written a book. It's called Crushed by Rubber Soul. And I want to hear all about that title because I think it's such an intriguing title. Just the title alone is really, really intriguing. But first, I want to talk a little bit about you and your authorship journey. I know you've been writing, I think it's for as long as you can remember, right? You're like me. I'm like you. We're like each other. You're like me because you're younger. You're only 25. Mm-hmm. And you're a published author, which I think is so cool. Tell me a little bit about your journey.
So, ever since I could first pick up a pencil, I was writing these mimics of these copies of movies. I would take construction paper and I would just write down the plot. I would draw these little pictures and all that. And that kind of developed into writing my own original stories when I was, 7. Looking on it now, I'm like, oh my God. But my first story was called The Fun Wizard. It was pretty much just a ripoff of the Fairly Odd Parents. So inspiration comes in a weird variety of ways. It was all about this little boy who's, doesn't have the best home life, and all of a sudden this wizard just magically comes out of nowhere, and just they go on adventures and all that stuff. So it was that kind of manifested, and I kind of just did my own original stories, and I started to venture more into the dark and macabre. Which turned some heads when I was in middle school and high school, but that was my style. And then I started to venture more into filmmaking. I love screenwriting, and I love directing things that I also write. It was a little weird writing things and then giving it off to somebody else to direct. So that was kind of strange. And I never really found my confidence until very recently. A good friend of mine was like, why don't you just direct your own movies? And I was like, good plan. And started doing that. And I really wanted to go back into writing, just solely writing, no filmmaking, just writing a book. And luckily, we were all trapped for a year, so I had plenty of time to do it. So I wrote my first book. It was called Imagine No More. This is what it looks like. It's pretty much a compilation of poems that didn't necessarily have a through line. They were just representations of myself. And that was pretty cool to see the reception of that. And then about a year ago, I decided I want to do it again. But I wanted it to have a through line. I wanted to have a theme, and I wanted it to be an album, a written album, because I love music so much. Music was a huge inspiration for this book. That's how it just constantly just crosses over. Music was a huge inspiration for this book, and I wanted each piece to almost be a little mini episode that leads into the next piece. Because, you see with a lot of anthology stories and poetry books, the pieces are very singular, but they don't translate to the next one. So that was the challenge that I wanted to see how I would be able to do it. And, about a year, things happened, some highs, some lows, and all translated into the book. And yeah, here we are.
That is, I love your writing journey so much, because there's so much of that it resonates with me so much. Your love of music, the writing scripts and all of those things, screenplays and everything from a young age. And by the way, I think that is, one of the greatest ways to for a child to start that learning process for writing, which is mimicking, because you're really learning the structure of a story and all of those things, and you don't even realize that you're learning it. You think you're just copying something, but it's learning. So I think that's so cool that you did that as a kid. And the filmmaking, I'm so jealous, because that's something I want to move into as well. I do a lot of TikTok. Do you do the TikTok?
I
call
do.
it. I like to call it the TikTok because I like to sound like an old lady. You know, I say the Walmart, the TikTok, the Facebook, just because I think it's fun.
It adds emphasis to it.
Yeah, exactly. The TikTok. Yeah, so that has really, really inspired me, ironically, I guess, a little bit to start moving into that as well. So I'm so envious that you do that. You said something really interesting on your back cover blurb about music, where you were talking about music and your love for music. You said that you see music as colors. Is that right?
Yes. So that I've had to try to explain that. It's very hard to do that.
Yeah.
It's almost like a feeling, and it's, I've heard people say that they can visualize, music in a way, but not like how I can describe it. So I think it's like very individualized. So what I meant by that is when I hear a song, specifically the Beatles, because I'm a huge fan of the Beatles. That will trickle into what the cover means. But when I hear a song, there's almost like a story that plays out in front of me, almost like a movie. And when I hear that, it's almost like a symbiotic relationship where it's like I can't not listen to music and then think of a story and see like almost like this movie play out in front of me. It could just be like a little scene, or it could just be like a vibrant splash of colors. It's I tried to visualize that in the book, and I also tried to do it in the last one. But people were still like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I don't know."
That's actually really interesting. Like, at what point, like, I don't know, how old are you, or when did you realize that you see things quite differently than a lot of people? Like, was it a conversation you were saying it to somebody and they're like, "What?" Or
well, it also like trickled down to the filmmaking side of it. When I can't not write and not listen to music. I think that was always prevalent in my process, but I really accepted it as something that was unique to my process when I wrote the first book. When I would listen to music, specifically like classical stuff, like Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, all that stuff, I wrote with the beats of the song. Like if the music goes down, like my work, like the tone of my work goes down. Mm-hmm. And it was a way that I was trying to find my voice. People always say like, you find your voice by mimicking somebody else and then kind of doing your own thing with it. So that was my way of doing that. So, I would follow the beats of the song, and like, you go on YouTube and you can find 10 hours of classical music. So it was great. I had a lot to choose from. So that kind of just molded, and I just like accepted that as something that I was able to do. And then now I can kind of just have like the music playing, but I can take it and do something else with it. So it was a long process, but I've been listening to music and writing stuff based on that since I was a kid. So it was always there. I just never really accepted it until now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this makes you're speaking my language. This makes complete sense to me. I actually have, and I've actually shared my playlist from books, because I do the same thing when I write, and it's been a while since I've written, but when I write, I have very specific music playing in the background depending on what I'm writing, like basically what you're doing. And one of the books I wrote, the main character, she had a fixation on the 1940s. So throughout the entire book, that's all I listened to, music from the 1940s, and, made a playlist of it. So I think you're not an anomaly in our world. Like this is, you found your home for sure. Because I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've spoken to other writers, artists, creative people, and they've said, oh yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I think it's people not in our realm.
I have my producing partner and collaborator. We have a production company together. Her name is Emily Short. She's also a writer, filmmaker, all that stuff. She does the exact same thing, and then that was how we kind of like bonded, was about like how we see things and how we collaborate and, pretty much go along the same process. You spoke about the 1940s. She's a big World War II buff, so you're speaking
Oh,
her language as well.
where was she when I was writing? She could have been my source. Oh,
Right.
that's so incredible. I love the way you do your work. This is so cool. Now, talk to me about your newest book, Crushed by Rubber Soul. Tell me about the title.
So a lot of people have asked me about the title, and it all comes down to the Beatles. I love Rubber Soul. It's probably one of the greatest albums of all time. However, when I listen to it, I get that burst of imagination, those colors, those vibrant, the imagination just runs wild. And then when it's over, you're almost like disappointed. You're like, do I want to, I wish I could just live in that fantasy world that I created for myself, that the Beatles kind of just painted for me. So when I say Crushed by Rubber Soul, it doesn't necessarily mean like the album hurt me in a way. It's just, I'm disappointed that I can only stay in this bubble for so long. And then it eventually pops, because as all albums do, they end very abruptly. So that was kind of the inspiration for the title. However, I was writing the pieces for the book way before I came up with the title. I wanted to do something that was as true to my life and how I see the world as humanly possible, and that was the through line. The theme of this book is like self-expression and self-liberation. How I see the world, how I see the political side of the world, how I see like the traditional ways of thinking that, through television, all that, we're trying to progress and move forward. And I think there's people that are still like honed in on those traditional ways. So I wanted to smash through that and say like, hey, like it's okay to be different. It's okay to not fit into that traditional bubble. So a lot of pieces are talking about that. I have a piece called FCC, where I like talk about like how censorship is, it's very biased to what they censor and what they choose not to censor. And there's also very personal pieces about my recent tragedies in my family. I just lost my grandmother. So that was a very prevalent inspiration for a lot of the pieces in the book, like that tragedy and that feeling of loss. I didn't know how to deal with that. So I figured the best way to do it is just write it down. And I was very scared to put it out there. So I'm like, is this in bad taste? Like, am I like, how do I explain this? And are people going to take this the wrong way? But I think the ultimate theme of that is like, I loved my grandmother, and I want people to see what she meant to me and what she meant to the people around me. So that was kind of where I'm like, all right, it's okay to kind of put this out there. But yeah, overall, like it was a really, really fun process to do. I like not having time limits because I self-published this. So I was kind of working at my own pace. And then the hardest part is being done and saying like, is there more? Like, do I have more to say? Especially 2:00 in the morning, I'm like, I got an idea. So yeah, I kind of was just like, all right, I think I'm good. I've said enough. Yeah. Because I don't want to overstay my welcome.
Yeah. And I think that's a great, I guarantee, I know this, that a lot of aspiring authors or new authors that are in the process of writing their book, that's one of the most looming questions, which is, how do I know when it's done? How do I know if this is it? If there's, like you said, if there's more to add to this, or if it's done. And I agree with you. I think you just feel it. You just kind of know. You're always going to doubt yourself a little bit, because that's just the nature. It's just human nature to question and doubt yourself and doubt your abilities and doubt all of the things. It's very frustrating, isn't it?
There is.
Right? It's really like, if you could just take that part of your brain and just toss it out, it would be really nice. But then I guess then we'll be unbalanced. But yeah, I think that's a great response to that, which is you'll just know. And it's probably frustrating for anyone watching or listening who's in that moment right now of being uncertain, but take our word for it. You just feel it, and and there does come a point where you just kind of close it and say, this is it. Like, this is the baby. It's going out in the world. Talk to me a little bit about that part of the process, the releasing, because your work in particular is it's 100% personal. It's your thoughts, your feelings, your views, and you're putting it out like we all do in this lane for public consumption, dissection, criticism, critique, all of the things. How do you handle that part of the process?
I think by being completely rejected at a very young age has kind of made me numb to criticism. I was working on a project many years ago. I was in like community college, and it was panned, to say the least. It was a screenplay, and I was very young, very naive in the process and how it all worked, and I got a real taste of reality. So that has always been in my head. However, when I released the first book, it got sent to like, it was bought in like 6 countries. So that was like, oh my God.
Yes.
And I was having a really hard time accepting that. And I'm like, how could something that I wrote, like how could a book that I wrote be in more places than I am? I've never been to Europe. I've never been to China. I've never been to India. So like, that's not fair. But a friend of mine told me, like, once you put it out, no matter what it is, whether it's a film, whether it's a book or whatever, it's not yours anymore. It's everyone else's. And it's their opportunity to make something out of it. That's why it's like when people ask me what the meanings of certain things are, I don't necessarily like to give my explanation of it anymore, because it kind of ruins it and individualizes it, you know? Excuse me. But once you put it out there, it's everybody else's, and they have the opportunity to get an interpretation of it. You know, even my grandfather was like, I think this means this, this, and this. And I'm like, yeah, it does. Like, it means whatever you want it to believe.
Yeah.
So like, I have my perception of it when I wrote it, but, and like the inspirations that led to it, but it's a cool feeling. And it honestly makes every bit of negative criticism that I've gotten in my life so worth it when I hear someone try to dissect it and make their own interpretations of it.
I agree with you. I love that too. And I love your explanation of that, of how you use the criticism to move forward. And I think the biggest lesson, and I think that's such a valuable, I think it's more valuable, you know, rejection and criticism. I think it's in a lot of ways almost more valuable than praise and adulation and, you know, 5-star, you know, all of those things, because you don't grow from those. Your ego grows from those, but your skill, I think, grows, and you get a thicker skin, you get tougher, you know, you realize, okay, that hurt, that stung a lot, that made me doubt myself and my abilities. But at the same time, it made me realize, or this is the lesson I would hope that people would take from, let me put it that way, that it didn't kill you. It did not destroy you. It hurt you, but it didn't destroy you. And hopefully what you take from it is it makes you strive to be better, do better, and prove them wrong. You know, I'm a fighter, so I love it. You tell me I can't do something, or I'm, you know, not good enough at something. Well, now I have to show you. Right?
It's so easy for someone to just say something mean on social media.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's so easy for people to do that, and they don't realize how much it hurts the other person. Right. You know, people say like, oh, just turn the phone off. But I'm like, yeah, but you can't help but not read it and take it personally. Right. You know, I dealt with that quite recently, where it was a constant attack on my character. But, you know, and all of it was just not valid. It was just, you know, petty stuff. But I was really trying my best to like keep going with that. But I'm like, no, like why should I stop telling my story on social media or whatever, or using it to my creative advantage because one person is mad at me, you know? Right. So it took a while, but I've figured it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get like motherly and protective of, you know, people just coming into this and not really being fully understanding, like, you know, TikTok is a fantastic example of how horrible people can be to other people behind the safety of a, you know, computer screen or phone screen and keyboard. These are people that would never say these types of things to anyone in person. And they feel absolute confidence and comfort to say horrible things to strangers on the internet. And, the biggest thing I always tell anyone who's getting into any version of our realm is that you have to remember that the things that they say are a reflection of them, not of you, because this is their perception, this is their ideas, and it's all based on their experiences and their life. And for someone to be mean pointlessly to a stranger on the internet, or even somebody really, shows a tremendously deep well of self-dissatisfaction and unhappiness, because happy people don't hurt people. They just don't. They don't seek to hurt anyone. And, so I think, and I'm sure you agree, that's probably like the lesson for anyone new coming into this, whether it's publishing books or acting or any of the things. That you're putting yourself out there, that you have to separate yourself from all of that. And I agree with you. You mentioned, reading the things and not reading it. It's so impossible. I preach it. I say, don't read the reviews. Don't read the comments. Don't read them. I'm the first one going to read them.
Yes, me too. Don't worry.
Yeah. And I mean it. Don't do it, people. Don't do it. Learn from my example, and not do what I do.
It's, the phrase "kill them with kindness." It sounds so cliche, but it works.
It does.
Even like just not responding, it's the ultimate like mic drop.
Yes, it really is. You're so right. What else would you give for advice to people coming into our lane? I hate to make us sound so separate from everybody, but it's different.
Well, I recently had the privilege of seeing Quentin Tarantino live in person. He's one of my inspirations. He was talking about his book, and he just talked about just make the thing, just do it. Because, and also I'm a huge fan of Kevin Smith, and he talks about the same thing. Both of them had this like effect on me where it's like, just go out and do it. Talking about it and doing it are two totally different things. No matter what the thing is, just you have one opportunity in this world to really make something of yourself. And, however long that lasts, whether it's 100 years, 80 years, we don't know. So you don't want to spend the rest of your life doing something that you don't want to do. I'm lucky where I have a job that I really, really love. Like I work in special education. So that's like, it's a huge, like, gratifying experience for me. So I'm lucky where I get to do that during the day. And then at night, kind of do something that I equally love. To be able to do that is, it's a privilege, but I say to anyone, if you have a thing that you want to make the thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that is, honestly, I think that is the absolute best advice in the world, because everything that people choose not to do, that they want to do, the thing that always holds them back is fear. It's always fear. It's fear of the unknown, fear of rejection and criticism, fear of failure, and all of those things. And, and I'm right there with you. I have failed. I've been criticized, all of the things, and I've survived all of them. And, not only survived, just thrived from them. You find out so much about yourself in the way that you handle adversity, really. And, it just breaks my heart to think of anyone not pursuing a dream or a goal out of fear. Like, just stop caring so much, about what other people might think or say, and just do it. And I think that's fantastic advice. I'm so glad that you shared that with people. And I hope that anyone that watches this or hears this takes that to heart and just takes that leap of faith in themselves, really, and just goes for it. And whatever happens, happens, because it doesn't matter. The people that are criticizing are usually the people that haven't done a damn thing,
Yeah.
Right?
And they're using that to kind of like mask their like self-esteem issues. Yes. And project that onto others. So it's like, if I'm going to be miserable, you're going to be miserable with me. And I think that's the worst thing you can do to a person.
It is. Yeah, I agree completely. Vincent, tell everyone where they can find you and your books. If you got a website, social media, all the things, where can we find you?
So I actually have it here. On the last page of the book, there's all of like my ways to find me. My Instagram is at Vincent_Cotroneo. That's COTRONEO. TikTok is at Vincent Cotroneo. I also have like short stories on this website called Vocal. If you just type in my name, there's a couple of them there. And my website, we have all of like our short films on there. It's tigerpackproductions.com. We're actually in the process of working on another short, and I'm gonna just announce this here. I want to take the book Crushed by Rubber Soul and turn it into like an album. I got really inspired by The Doors and Jim Morrison's An American Prayer. So I kind of wanted to do something similar to that, where it's like speaking poetry, but like with music accompanying it, because I think like that's the best kind of companion piece for the book, since it was so inspired by music to do that. So I'll be working on that, and yeah, I just hope people like the book.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Vincent, it has been so great talking with you and hearing all of the things that you have going on. I'm so excited. Are you working on another book? Is there anything else coming out soon, or you're in the process of that?
A friend of mine and I are working on a fantasy novel, but I also wanted to venture into horror in books, because I think 2 poetry books is enough for me. I think I wanted to go more into like the narrative, and I was always inspired by like the Universal monster movies, and I wanted to make something more modern, but harkens back to that era of like, you know, like Dracula, Frankenstein. So I've been trying to figure out something like that, but I'll be working, you know, trying to outline that soon. But yeah, I want to go into like more narrative stuff.
That is so cool. I'm really excited to see all the incredible things you're going to be doing. You have such a great light about you. You're just a flat out good human who just happens to be like really, really talented too. So I'm so excited to see all the cool things you're going to do. I really appreciate you coming on the show today, and I can't wait for people to hear all about you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. Anytime. The next book, the next project, come on back and we'll share it with everybody. I would love that.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm super excited.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching the show. Go check out Vincent Cotroneo. I did it. I knew I was going to mess it up. Go find those books. Go find him, and you won't be disappointed. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.
Just in time for the holidays, it's the ultimate one-stop holiday shop. Find everything you need in one spot in my Amazon influencer affiliate shop. If you're looking for the perfect gift for the reader in your life, why not check out one of my books? They're all available on Amazon and most major online book retailers, as well as elsakurt.com.